Hello, all you lovely listeners. Here back with you with another episode on this time a similarity and difference around
Endometriosis and dysmenorrhea.
with our special guest Niranjana here.
It's been a while since we've recorded for sure, and really looking forward to this. I think the last time we did this was a couple of months back, so it's nice to get back into this and get back into the flow with you guys. So, for all of you guys listening, we definitely will ensure that we will cover in a lot of topics, and we are very empathetic towards this particular topic.
And compassionate. So we come in a space of compassion, light, and information to give you the best experience that we can possibly can. So we would like to start from the very start. I think we had a bit of conversation like where do we start from this? We realize that many a times when girls get into puberty, they are not very well informed. In fact, I think back in our times as well, it was not much information apart from like, hey, this is going to happen to you, and this is what you need to use, and that's it, nothing else. We also, I think, at least for me, it was a little very late talk because I think I got mine very early, so my parents didn't really expect it and didn't know what to say at that time. How about for you? How was it for you?
I think it was just more of a very direct approach saying that, okay, you've got your period, so you just have to wear a sanitary napkin, it'll come once a month. And then there was also this whole religious turn. I had like this religious ceremony and stuff like that because I got it, which made me feel a bit embarrassed because I didn't want like my male cousins and male uncles to get to know that I got my period. Like it felt like an embarrassing thing because, of course, we all know that in a lot of cultures and growing up, there is a stigma or there's an embarrassment towards getting your periods and stuff, as if very few girls have it or not. It's not like a normalized thing. Well, of course, things have changed now, but how it was back then, being 11, 12, 13, during that age, getting it, it's you might feel grossed out about it. You might feel like there's something abnormally wrong with you, or you might be scared or nervous. And all of those feelings are very normal because it's a new thing coming into your life. It is a new chapter in your life. It is definitely you becoming a woman, but not yet a woman. So it's definitely a new chapter, which can be very scary and confusing.
And it's also validating emotion whatever you're going through, because I completely resonate with the stigma, the embarrassing feeling being called to your family members saying that, hey, this has happened, when it is a very, I think for a woman, it is a very surprising new experience that you kind of need to comprehend for yourself before you can kind of reach out. And I think this education should not only be for the kids going through, but also for the adults, understanding and having a sitting down conversation with your loved one, telling that this is certain things that happen. Also knowing that nowadays, because of so much lifestyle changes that are happening, I've been hearing a lot of younger girls getting hitting their puberty at a very young age. At least for me, when I got it was very young. It was not a normal age. Well, there's never any normal age either ways. I got it when I was 11 years old. I just turned 11 years old to at least 3 months. 3 months and 3 months and you can say 12 days. Yeah. So that's when I got mine. How about you? How
I
old
also
were you?
got it, I think, when I was 11. And I
Oh,
thought that it wasn't early. So when you said that was early, I was like, wow, like it's very perceptive. It's very different from person to person. But also one thing which we need to keep in mind is there's a whole generation gap from when our mothers had gotten their period and how our grandmothers had taught our mothers on how to deal with it. There was a huge taboo. Especially like in the Indian culture of not being able to go into the kitchen and cook. I mean, that was there for a lot of people. Refraining yourself from going into religious festivities, which is still there even today. Taboos that women are impure and women are not clean enough to do a lot of activities. So that made this this self impression that you're not clean, that you're disgusting, and so many things. But now in today's generation, if we become mothers or if we are mothers, how we pass it on to our daughters and or basically younger girls is to tell that it's very scientific, it's very biological, it's very natural. However, it comes with a lot of side effects. It comes with the hormonal changes, the mood swings, the PMS,
Mhm.
and that needs to be normalized. And because we are brought up with different diets, different lifestyle changes, different ways of living, our period cycles are different from another person to another person. So, because of the lifestyle and diet and everything, there can be changes and there can be various differences or even discomforts in a period. No two periods are really the same. But if you are pretty healthy and if things are going well for you physically and mentally, your period cycle will be very normal.
Yes, and there's two things I want to address in this. One, being a cultural shock. So not everyone in India have ceremonies, first of all. So that was a new culture shock, being that, okay, there's a ceremony for something like, hitting your puberty. Second, there's a huge explanation, scientific explanation on what she explained, which is like women were not allowed to go to the kitchen, weren't allowed to in religious ceremonies. The scientific explanation to that is generally back in the days, women were in a much weaker side because you're draining, like something is coming out of you, so you have very low energy, you lose a lot of like vitamins. So it was considered that the best thing to do at that time is to relax and to rest. And going to temples is a lot of energy. So in Hinduism, going to a temple, you're going there for heightened energy or receiving heightened energy. So the energy exchange that happens is always in a higher level, which when you're in your cycle, you're not in your optimum level of energy, which is why it is said that it is best for women to rest at home. Even kitchen activities require a lot of energy because you're constantly standing and doing motion, which is why it was considered to rest and not be in the kitchen during those those period of time. But I don't know how it has been converted into like some certain taboo and
Very much
yeah,
misinterpreted
misinterpreted to a
as
point.
well. Like even I now, I think Shreya, you explained it in such a great way. You explained it in a very logical, scientific way. But even when I would see like my grandmothers or my aunts and stuff like that, even now when they're on their periods, they don't cook and they have someone else cook for them. It made me feel like, oh, are they belittling them and making them feel like, oh, you're too impure to enter the kitchen? But that is such a misinterpreted way of looking at it. It's just that you're tired, you're weak, you want to rest, so you take some time off. It's that simple. But the way it's been interpreted,
Yes.
it brings a lot of unnecessary shame and unnecessary stigmatizing towards the whole concept of periods.
Yes, I think this is a great time to bring why um, why is it something like that, and I think I can address it with endometriosis as well. And before we get into that with the energy part of things, yes, when you have something like endometriosis, you have a low, I think even for dysmenorrhea, you have
Yes.
very low energy. So during those period of time, entering the kitchen, actually doing heavy activities itself can be very, very
Difficult and maybe
difficult.
impossible also.
Yes, near to impossible. And I can see like maybe how that notion has been like molded and converted. And I think back then there was no like logical reason, because only now people know that, oh, there are so many different conditions, and this was normalized. Like being in pain, being tired was normalized, and it was also fed in marketing ways that, okay, if you wore this certain product you would be more active. But that's not the case, and that's not the situation in actuality. And also it's not similar for all girls, let's be very clear, where we should be pretty much more mindful that some might have it more painful, where some don't even have any pain. They have completely normal day to day life, which is pretty fine for them. So, how was it having your first puberty come and not knowing of a condition like this that exists? At least I can say on my part, before I give the floor to like Niranjana, for me, actually, it was very smooth. I knew what it was because I had a lot of other girls get it earlier. For most of you who do not know, I wasn't in India, so it was a little bit easier state of understanding that many other girls were having it before me and what exactly happens. I was very, very grateful and blessed with an amazing best friend who educated me about what exactly it is and never put any stigma or shame or taboo into anything that was being shared. So I was aware. In fact, she was one of the first, she was no one, she was the first person I called. And it was very evidently told to me, like, tell your family members and they'll tell you what you need to do next. um, I did have slight pain, like discomfort, I can say. I think because it was new, it was something very, very it wasn't surprising, but it was something to digest, that this is now going to be part of life, in which, as a girl, you're not ever thinking of something like this. You're just enjoying childhood, running around, playing, doing absolute full freedom. And then now you had this new thing where it kind of is, at least to me, the first secret in life you have to keep. And that is, I think, the biggest shock. Like, okay, this is very personalized. It's like a secret. It's something that's happened to you. It's deep. How was the experience for you?
I think for me, I was mostly embarrassed because I remember like my mom was pushing me to tell a lot of family members, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be like, hey, everyone, I got my period, be congratulate me. Like, it was just very, very embarrassing for me being that young and to get it and to have a lot of attention on me and to have all these rituals and puja done on me. I just was like, okay, like I don't want anyone to know about this. Um, but then that's just how our previous generations were brought up, and when they put that what they've done on their daughters, it's something which you just have to learn how to navigate and take what is important and take what isn't.
Yes.
But I feel like now I've had a very rocky relationship with periods because I'm very fortunate I'm not going through it now, but I used to have dysmenorrhea. I think 2 years back, that was because I was pre diabetic and I was overweight. And I had very painful periods. And dysmenorrhea is basically when the shedding of the uterine lining is excessive and the uterine contractions are more than what it should do. And the contractions are very similar to labor pain. And that's what the doctor was telling me, that I was experiencing labor pain. And it was beyond uncomfortable. And it was traumatic because I had to go to the hospital. I had to admit myself, and I wasn't even staying in my house, I was staying in some hostel. And I had to go through all of that. And some doctors were just like very superficial, take birth control pills, which is the worst thing you could do. But I realized that with good diet and exercise and eating mindfully and uh, having less blood sugar spikes and being below the pre-diabetic range, you can definitely avoid certain things like this, like things like PCOS and stuff, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It arises through sedentary lifestyles. It arises through unhealthy habits. It arises through inactivity, which is a lifestyle change, which is there in a very long run. If you're someone who has been sitting for a long period of time over the series of months or years, you'll find yourself go through that. But it differs from person to person. It is like metabolism. Like my metabolism is different from her metabolism, similarly to another person's metabolism. So periods are different for various different kinds of women, and it's very important to be empathetic. because when I was talking about this with my friends, a lot of my friends were like, I have never experienced periods as painful. Like, periods is just no pain at all. Like, I don't even know what it's like to have pain. So I was very shocked to hear that from somebody when I was going through a lot of pain. So it's different
It's
because,
different.
even to be honest, in my last period cycle, I didn't have an ounce of pain. I was questioning whether I have my period or not,
Hmm.
and that's because of a different food habits and different lifestyle. And I'm also taking cannabis, which is a different topic altogether, which reduces pain. So there are very natural ways to get rid of it, and you don't have to go into allopathic ways or birth control. There are various different kinds of ways to approach it, but it's very important to understand that um, your period cycle is like a visual check to see how is your health at this time. So if you're having a very bad period cycle, it could be because maybe you had a very bad viral fever, or you ate a lot of sweets, or you had a lot of sugar, which is why you're having a bad period cycle now.
It's a good
So
check.
it's a good check to understand where you are with your health. So that's a lot to do with periods and cycles and everything. But most importantly, it's very important to not be too hard on yourself during these days and not expect yourself to do so much, because your energy is compromised. Your ability to do things are compromised. So it's very important to not have very high expectations on yourself, especially in the gym when you're on your cycle.
Hmm. And how was it when you first got it? Like,
I
what's the experience?
I think it was challenging because I was not introduced to the concept of cups. I was introduced to pads. And I was somebody who was a bad stainer. I would stain my pants a lot when I was sleeping or when I was going out.
That's, yeah, that's even the
I
same
was
case.
so not used to it, so I didn't know how to manage it, but I used to stain a lot, and I used to find it very frustrating.
Mhm. So, like she explained about this menorrhea for endometriosis, honestly, there isn't any exact symptoms that initially happens. So, what is the difference? I think this is the best time to bring up the difference. So, with endometriosis, it can arise at any age. Age is not a factor. Generally, one of the fact check that I got introduced is early puberty is maybe one of the reason. So what happens with endometriosis is that, like she said, it's the shedding on the line, right? In endometriosis, the line that sheds, that tissue is being mimicked. It's not the same, it mimics, and it grows outside the uterus. So it has nothing to do within your ovaries or within your uterus, it just grows outside. And it can go anywhere in the body internally, to even your pelvis wall, and up to anywhere. And what happens is, because for women who are not aware or asymptomatic, what happens is this tissue starts growing because it doesn't have anywhere to shed. It's like a bubble and it starts growing. So it takes up to like 8 to 10 years to get diagnosed. Abroad in India, like a standard age could be like around 27 to 20, 27 to 30, you can range it around somewhere there. And what happens is that you can start understanding a certain pattern. So for me, in my teenage, when I just got it, like I told, was a very basic experience, discomfort, uneasy. I started with pads, so pads was the
I think
standard for
most
me.
of us started with pads, I
With
guess.
pads. And what makes the difference between the two is you do have contractions like how dysmenorrhea has. So many people get confused with the two, which I thought was very important topic to bring the similarities, because even with endo you have contractions, which is very very similar to like labor pain. And I think that's why when many people go through like um, like delivery or so, they kind of don't realize the difference because they've already experienced it. Also, one more thing to note is that how people find about endometriosis, unlike dysmenorrhea, where I don't know at what age did you find out that you had it, but for endo, it is we will get back to that. um, with endo, I found out around 28 to 29 years of my age, and it happened because of a food poisoning that
Interesting.
exaggerated. exaggerated my symptoms, and I should have been a little well aware, but it's very hard to pick it up again because there was symptoms like leg triggers, hot flashes, headaches, nose bleeding. um, these things were there, but they only started arising around my 20s, not before that, only after 20 somethings. And what happens is that there are two ways to find out. One is either you're in emergency, you're in excruciating pain that you're fallen on the ground, and second, either you're trying to conceive that they find out. Again, there's no gender with endometriosis. It happens to any living beings. There are guys who have also experienced this, but at a very short number. And also, I hope I'm covering all the things. Another thing that you can make out with this is through your period cycle, like how she mentioned, and I had to get into the differences. Is that endometriosis is not a lifestyle issue. It's not something like you say, okay, do these and this is how. It's only a pain management. And when I say pain management, something to reduce your triggers, something to reduce the the pain that you're going through, but there's no research or evidence shown that, oh, through diet and exercise is reversible, like how PCOS or PCOD or dysmenorrhea works. It doesn't. I have not seen, at least I have not come across that. And it's very very complex with every individual. So for me it was a moderate state. I've heard women having extreme state, and I've heard women who have no state at all. They are like as normal as a normal individual having every day to day activity. Um, Apart from that, yes, with the cycle, how did I recognize with the cycle? That's a great way to know. One of the symptoms is that for a girl to have healthy period, let's talk period now. For a girl to have healthy period, their cycle will start 32-day gap, 28 to 32-day gap. What happens is during the 5 day of cycle, the first 2 days are heavy bleeding and then it's normal, and there'll be no discharge of spotting. What is a spotting? Let's talk what spotting is. Spotting is a little, it's like how you see cherries, so little crushed type cherries that form. It can go as tiny as your nail to as big as your pinky finger. There is no exact size to it. And what happens when you have any condition, you'll start having more spotting. So that's also a way to check the health of your body. In my case, yes, I've had spottings, which I didn't know what it was for the longest period because we were not educated that much. And I've had it as big as like pinky finger as well. And it can get scary for girls in their 20s, like seeing it get bigger and bigger. um, but that's also a very important thing to keep in record. I will set the floor to Niranjana to ask, was it the same for you, and at what age did you find out
Before I get to
this?
that, I just want to say thanks, Shreya, for giving such a very nice, informative thing about endo. You definitely spoke about things which I myself did not know about endo, so that was very eye opening and very informative. And it's also extremely important to be very aware and very educated, especially at a young age where we just draw conclusions and assumptions and misinterpret things from our limited brain of information and understanding. So we need to ask more questions. We need to speak to more professionals. Not all gynecologists give judgment free talks and judgment free information. So it's very important to keep asking questions and not arrive at conclusions. Coming to what
Yeah,
Shreya asked me, for me, I think growing up at that age, it was very light. It was normal. It wasn't too bad. But then there was a time I do remember where I had it for like 20 days continuously. I don't know why, but I just had it, and then I took medicine and it regulated. But it's important to be very mindful and aware about how your periods are, how many days it's happening. Are you experiencing pain? Are you experiencing less pain or more pain? Is it uncomfortable? Is it not uncomfortable? So these things are really important to keep in mind. And the more aware you are, the more understanding you have, you'll automatically bring compassion and empathy into your body and treat yourself in a nicer way. Whereas putting yourself down, being harsh on yourself, or shaming yourself, these things can definitely be avoided.
Yes. And one more thing that I would like to also address, like how you said, speaking to your friends, speaking to your family, families being more understanding, friends being more understanding. I think you addressed one very, very important topic where you mentioned to your friends and they didn't experience. For me, it was a reverse. So I did have couple of talk with a friend. I think when I felt a little comfortable, because this was a very uncomfortable conversation to have, is that with endo, what many people don't realize and should be a very highlighted topic, I feel, for teenagers, is that can you imagine that people going through endo are 70 to 60 to 70% more depressed than what a normal person feels like? And when I say 60 to 70%, that these teenagers have at least once or more times thought about suicide. It's not a depression which is, okay, I don't feel like waking up from bed. It's a depression of non-existence, and that is something I cannot voice out as loud as possible, that it's very serious. And as a teenager going through that phase, I started recognizing, but the time I recognized was pretty later on, which was almost around ninth or 10th, high school, you can say, that is where I started recognizing, okay, so this is what's happening to me. And it's happening like months. I started recognizing, first I was like, am I crazy? Then I noted down the next month, and then the next month, and I realized, okay, it's happening quite every month. In terms of my PMS, it was happening. So it was before and during, and sometimes after that you feel much ease, but it's very, very difficult to make someone else understand. So I did have this conversation with a friend, pretty much one one friend, where it kind of ended up going as, you're talking crazy talk. And that was the response I got. And I just couldn't understand, where do I go for validation then, till I spoke to someone else, and then they explained to me, like, yes, someone else also has the same feeling that you're feeling. And then I could be like, okay, I'm not the only girl that feels this way, they are people. So I think having open conversation in a very young surrounding, to educate your friends, to educate that there is more possibilities than, okay, just one side of the story, but listening is something I think we need to start developing more compassion to that, more compassion to, my friend is addressing something. I shouldn't take it in terms of the I, but more into what is that other person feeling and why are they feeling that way. It's asking, it's not about asking questions. I think it is the right communication we are coming forth that matters, because asking a question could again lead into like assumptions, it could lead into, but asking why you're feeling that ways rather than, hey, tell me you're feeling that ways. There's a difference in the tonality. Or you probably are, going through something, and what is that something? So having these right ways of asking questions makes a difference, makes uh, makes a better way of early diagnosis. That's the word I would like to say. I don't think that I ever visited a gynecologist my whole teenage. So this message would be to the parents, and the young girls, that it is okay to visit a gynecologist. It is fine. And it's okay that a lot of hormonal changes will go on from your teens to your 20s. So it, just love yourself, be whatever it is, just love yourself.
That was really great, Shreya. That was really, really great. Actually, you know what? When you spoke about the fact that you didn't visit a gynecologist in your teens and it's okay to visit a gynecologist, I had multiple times where I had to get a pap smear and I had to get um, this. lower abdominal tests and everything because there was something really wrong with dysmenorrhea. And this was just
Mhm.
last year or last year. My mom was telling me that the only time she got a scan was when she was pregnant for the first time and when she was pregnant for the second time. And here I am getting various tests, before a pregnancy at all. So this is also a lot to do with normalizing getting tests and normalizing visiting a gynecologist, because in those days it was like you're visiting a gynecologist because you're pregnant and you're going to be giving birth soon, so you have to visit a doctor. That was only when the reproductive system was given importance. But it's very important to understand your reproductive system starts at the age of 13 or 14, regardless of whether you conceive or not. Even if you never conceive in your life, your reproductive system is on and running. And that, just like how we give attention to our general health, a fever or a sore throat, we have to give that much importance to our menstrual reproductive system. And like we spoke about kindness and compassion. So my biggest advice, to tell people is that don't let anyone dismiss what you're going through, because just because if your friend doesn't understand or is ignorant of what you're going through, there is a professional, there is a specialist, there are people who identify and recognize what you're going through. So you're not alone, regardless of whatever you're going through in
Yes.
respect to your reproductive health. You are not alone, and you always have support. It may not come from your family, it may not come from your friends, but it can come from a professional specialist who can recognize and identify what you're going through.
That's a beautiful explanation. I think you should give more clarity on what pap
Pap smears
smears.
are basically where they do what's the best word for this? They basically examine the vaginal area and they try to identify if there are any kind of infections, if there are any kind of abnormalities. And this is basically trying to normalize that your reproductive body parts are as important as your other body parts. So we may get physical examinations, we may go for blood tests and see if our B12 or if our D levels are fine, but we also need to go for regular pap smears. And saying this also reminds myself that just because if you're feeling okay, it doesn't mean that your future will be okay. So
Mhm.
it's important to recognize the signs, don't be afraid of taking tests, and always go to a gynecologist who you feel are comfortable in explaining anything, even if it's about your sexual life, your sex life. You have to feel very comfortable and feel like that other person is not going to judge you. And now in today's world, I do see it myself, is that there are a lot of gynecologists and a lot of OBGYN care where they market themselves as we are a judgment free place. You can speak your mind out, and we also have therapy with the gynecology services also. So they recognize the importance and they link the mental and physical health together. And that's very much available, even if it's not accessible in your area, it's very much available online. If you have the right resources online, you can definitely cure yourself or
Mhm.
get or progress yourself in health and have a better understanding and a better relationship towards your body.
Yes. That's a really nice explanation you gave there. I also want to ask you, so with pap smear, just one thing is they take like, just to give a very more descriptive example, is that they take like how you have your earbud, they have a long strip of that, and then they kind of take a testing in your vaginal area, and then they just check for like any infection and how's the health of it with that. And the second question I wanted to ask you is, how is the testings for dysmenorrhea? Like, is there any scans or
There
any
is a
tests?
lower abdominal scan, that is the pelvic scan, that is done. There is a blood test that is done.
Mm-hmm.
But the lower abdominal scan is just to see how are things with your ovaries, how are things with the
Mm-hmm.
lining.
What do they do in that?
And there are a particular time, I think it's best to get it done on your third day of your period, or it depends from each condition to a condition. It's better to ask a professional, a licensed gynecologist. But it gives the doctor a lot more clarity of what is happening there, if there are any abnormalities. So for me, I'll be open about it. When I got my scan, I'm very fortunate that there were no abnormalities and stuff like that. And the doctor told me openly it was lifestyle for dysmenorrhea. And that's when I realized that, yeah, I was overweight and yeah, I was pre-diabetic. So then I went on this whole journey of weightlifting and weight training and going plant based, getting rid of eggs, getting rid of dairy, and eggs and dairy and how that impacts the system is another topic altogether, which we've actually covered in our previous topics of
Right.
nutrition. So if you want to understand about food and menstrual health, you can definitely log into Sync It Up in our other previous podcasts where we talk about diets and nutrition, and we explain in
Yes.
very great length and very great detail about how eating eggs and how eating dairy or how eating meat or certain things impact our menstrual health, which is something which I wasn't aware of until I experienced it. So if you are experiencing something like that, if you're experiencing painful periods or PCOS, definitely tune into those podcasts. You'll definitely have a lot of clarity there.
Yes. So for the abdominal scan, what do they do? Like, is it a CT scan or?
It was basically like an ultrasound scan, like how
Hmm.
in pregnancy they have this ultrasound wand where they would go it, but they have it. It's a transvaginal scan. Also, a pelvic
Hmm.
scan is transvaginal, so they do a
Yes.
transvaginal scan. They also do a pelvic scan just to see. It's like a
Right.
mirror. It's like a kind of what's the right word for it? It's like okay. I'm not able to get the right word for it. It's
For
like
which one? The transvaginal or the?
transvaginal.
It's like a torch, like a I
Like a lens,
lens.
like a
Yeah, yeah,
lens.
lens.
I'm not getting the right word, but it's like a lens, which
Yeah.
like a telescope, basically, like a
Yeah, telescope.
telescope,
Telescope is good. Yeah.
which actually views and sees the internal organs and sees if everything is all right or not.
Wow. Was that painful for you?
No, it wasn't painful.
Really?
No, it wasn't
Oh my
painful.
God, for me it was so painful. Okay, so that's a good difference to notice there.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, when you have endo and you had the air is painful. And no, well, I don't
It
know.
can be painful.
It can, like, I mean, because in our case it's like lesions right around. So when they literally put it in to like scan around your like internal walls, it's pretty painful. So I think by then you should be pretty aware what you have. I think this is a very good distinguishment.
Yeah, it was
Even,
great, and
yeah.
no, I mean, I think I'm sure like by now our audience is pretty much engaged into the conversation, and there's a lot of research, there's a lot of learning,
Yeah.
and don't just go by what social media tells you. Don't go by something which is not written in the books. Don't just go by what
Yes.
someone is telling you. Question gynecologists also in certain things of why am I taking this medicine? Why not this? Because I have gone through cases where I've been prescribed the wrong medicine or I've been prescribed an incorrect medicine. So um, everybody is different. There are different ways to treat something. It's not necessarily the allopathic way. There's Eastern medicine. There's health and nutrition. There are so many ways to approach different things. So
Yeah. Most importantly, listen to your body.
listen to your body. Yes, I think
I
that's a
think that's the
very
best.
important thing to tell myself today. Listen to my body.
I think we constantly remind ourselves.
Yes, as we talk, we're
Yes.
reminding ourselves of the importance of things.
Yeah, it is important that, see, maybe you might not have a family member that understands, but you might have a neighbor, you might have an aunt, you might have your cousin who understands. Maybe they might not also understand. So everyone has their own journey. I love how you have explained very precisely on the different scenarios and experience perspectives that come across. There is also sometimes in your 20s you just have no clue like why is it so hard, but when you come in your 30s, because I think we had that difference you can like share, in your
Yeah,
30s it starts getting more relaxed. I think you start putting yourself first. I My best advice for anyone in their teens, always put yourself first,
very good
regardless.
advice.
Yeah, regardless of, oh my god, this is happening to me, or my friend is calling and I'm tired. Tell your friend it's okay. If you're tired, you tell your friend you can come and visit me, I don't want to go anywhere. I remember, like, one thing I'm very grateful, like, I think we should talk about what we are grateful as a teenager. One thing I'm very, very grateful as a teenager is, if I had pain, like I used to have lunch with my friends, for example, and I couldn't get up, I used to just tell them, like, I'll wait out 5-10 minutes. If you want, you can get up and go, but I will wait. Or I used to tell them, I'm a bit in discomfort, and I used to just sit there for a while till I feel okay to get up. And today I thank the little me, the teenage me, that took myself first and not like, okay, because everyone's getting up, I should get up, because I used to have shock pains. And with endo, like, there's a difference between a shock syndrome and a shock pain that you get. A shock syndrome is when you leave your, if you're having tampon is like this big
Toxic
long,
shock syndrome.
yeah, a toxic shock syndrome that you get with a tampon, which is, or pad that you put for like extremely long period of time. um, that you get an internal shock. With endo, a similar shock also happens in your vaginal, which kind of like just numbs your entire body with electric, and it's just a fraction of second, very painful, very full,
It,
cramped.
in serious cases, can lead to paralysis also. In very serious cases, and it
Yes,
can happen to anybody. So be careful when you're wearing tampons. Very, very important to not wear it overnight, because that can
yes,
also lead to paralysis, which is why I don't recommend tampons. I've always been an
yes.
ambassador for cups
Yeah,
because
me
it's
too.
silicone, it's safe, but again, you can't leave it in for a very long time as well.
Yes,
But you can leave it overnight.
yeah. So one thing is, there are different types. These pads with wings. There's tampons. Tampons is a long cotton ball with a string that you insert inside your vagina. Cups, which is like a cup, like this type, but smaller, and it has something poking down that you insert inside, and it collects the flow of the blood. For someone who has endo, at one point of time, chemicals didn't suit me, so I just shifted, and the best decision, shifting to cups, because it's reduced cramping pains, it's reduced
You
a
save a
lot.
lot of money.
You save a lot of money, you feel good because you're not harming anyone else. It is also advised to change your cup after 3 years, 3 to 4 years, healthy. Sterilize it with hot or warm water, and yeah, ensure to change it after 4 to 8 hours. Yes, I think these are good educational
Yes, and
medicine.
also you're not contributing any waste to the environment. You're not polluting any waste to the environment. You're using silicone and medical grade silicone, which is very safe. The same medical grade silicone is used in the heart stents when they have bypass surgery and certain heart surgeries where they have to place a stent. It's the same silicone that they use, so it's perfectly safe for the body.
Is perfect. And no worries. One thing is, no worries with cups, because many people have these questions. It doesn't go sticking up completely, so it won't get stuck anywhere. Your cervix and the distance with that is equivalent to your middle finger. So if it's that big, I mean, it can't go more up than that. So that's one thing. Second, when you use it the first 2 to 3 months, it might be a little harder. It will get softer with usage. So that's another thing to keep in mind, and as the blood flows, it will naturally come down, so you have nothing to worry about it. And we were talking about things you're grateful as a teenager. Let's ask Niranjana, what is she grateful as a teenager
I think I'm
with
grateful for
this?
not having chronic health issues and being able to have the money to be able to get help, getting scans, visiting a gynecologist. But I don't think I visited one in my very younger years. But if I just realized that I didn't have a lot of health issues back then. So not that I have
Yeah,
one now, but I'm just saying
yeah,
back then I didn't have any. So I'm very grateful for that.
that's lovely. And at what age did you get your scan? I don't know if I asked you this before or not.
I got quite a few scans, I think when I was 22, 23, 24,
Hmm.
26. The last scan I got was when I was 26.
You know what's one amazing thing? The difference as well is that you mentioned you had a CT scan in your abdomen. Like, I had a CT scan when I was around 24, like same age that you mentioned, and there was nothing detected back then. So imagine 24 to like 28. Like, how much gap is that itself to recognize that, oh, you have something like this.
True,
Yeah,
true.
and that too not through a CT scan. So max to max is like one is larger than the other, and I thought that was very normal. It's regular for all girls.
So I guess this was a very nice overall talk. We
Yes,
pretty much laid a lot of topics on the table. and discuss them. So if you do have any questions, you can definitely reach out to us. If you're watching this on
Yes.
Instagram, you can reach us on our Instagram handles. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can reach out to our handles over there. So we're very approachable. If you have any questions, please be open, reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer them. We're also not
Yes.
medical professionals, so we'll be happy to guide you to a medical professional. If you're looking or seeking for a right gynecologist to go to, we can definitely recommend.
Yes.
And we look forward to tuning in with you guys again. We look forward to having these engageful conversations and these mindful conversations that can definitely impact others in a very positive way.
Yes, you can leave your comments below. And if you found this video very, very informative and might be helpful for someone else, please do share it to your loved ones or anyone you feel that this information might be valuable to. And yes, like Niranjana gave the gist, you can completely reach us out in the comment below or DM us. We are very, very happy to answer your questions, and we hope you stay tuned for our next episode as well. Till then, take care. Bye bye.
Bye.